and welcome to the No Flipping Excuses Show.
Don't touch that
This is the #1 podcast for real estate investing, and each episode covers what you need to know to find and flip deals right now.
Wow!
Break free of the chains that are holding you back and join us on today's episode.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Jason Lucchese with the No Flipping Excuses Show. Welcome to an exciting edition that we've got here. I've got a good friend of mine with me today, Mr. Joe McCall. Gosh, I've known Joe now for a very long time. Joe's always doing some amazing things. I just was a guest on his amazing podcast just the other day, and now I have the pleasure of having Joe on our show. So, Joe, how are you doing, my man?
Good, Jason, man. How are you?
Good. Can't complain, man. I know we were talking a little offline. We both got some really cool stuff going on, and yeah. Joe's got a really cool surprise for you at the end of the show that I'm really happy that he's going to be sharing it with you guys. So make sure you stick around for that. But for those of you that don't know Joe, and I'll just do a quick intro here, and then Joe could tell you more about himself. He is known as the lease option guy. And if you are not implementing lease options within your business, you are seriously missing out on probably a lot of deals and a lot of money, because a lot of people, if you don't know this option, you're not going to be able to present it to the sellers. And without that option being able to be presented, you're missing out on a huge chunk of change. So, Joe, why don't we tell folks, for a lot of individuals, and I don't know anybody that doesn't know you because you've had your podcast out for a very long time now, and you've done tons and tons and tons of shows. So for the small people out there that don't know who you are, why don't we give a little bit of a background of who you are and what you're about?
Well, thanks, man. I'm just looking at my numbers here. I just released episode 835, and there's at least 50 episodes that haven't been numbered.
Oh my
So I don't know,
gosh.
900 episodes or so.
That's a lot of shows, dude.
Yeah, it's fun. I love doing it. I've been doing my podcast. It's called Real Estate Investing Mastery. Real Estate Investing Mastery. And I've been doing it since 2011. And it's been just a wild ride. I love teaching and I love interviewing people like you. I've had you on my show 3 times.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's kind of like having my own mastermind, right? I get to interview friends and students and other investors that are doing deals and get to find out kind of what's working and what's not. And it's a lot of fun. But
yeah,
I've been doing lease options since 2009. So I quit my job in 2009. So 11 years ago now. And a couple of years after that, I started my podcast because a lot of people were just asking me, hey, can you teach me how to do what you're doing? And I wanted a way, believe it or not, this is one of the big benefits of doing a podcast, is I wanted a way I could find somebody that I look up to and respect and say, hey, can I get you on my podcast? And then so it's a good way to get other people to talk to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's really, it's a cool little side benefit. Gives you a little bit of celebrity.
I'll tell you what, when we rolled out ours, and, for those that don't know, I have been trying to get Joe on for quite a while. So this is quite the treat. I reached out to several folks as well. And, we're over just a little over 100 episodes. So Joe has me beat by about 9 times the shows. But it's really cool, like he's saying, just being able to get and talk to so many different folks out there. And, so many people are doing so many different things in this space. It's crazy how cool it is. And we get to have them come on here and share what they're doing in their business. So it's awesome. So if you guys don't see what Joe's wearing, he's obviously a big.
Oh, come on, fan. Chiefs.
Yeah.
What a great Super Bowl, wasn't it?
That was an awesome Super Bowl. It was
it was fun. It was back and forth.
Yeah.
It was not a boring game, which there's nothing worse than a boring Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
No matter if you like if you like the 2 teams or not.
Right.
But it was a fun game to watch, and didn't watch halftime. Halftime is a joke anymore, but it was fun. It's a great time of the year to hang out with friends.
Yep.
Even though you're a Colts fan.
So I originally grew up in Northwest Chicago. So I grew up a Bears fan. So it's very, very tough being a Bears fan. But I do like the Colts since we've been here since '08. So I can't say I don't like them. But it was kind of weird. The 2 weeks before the season, the season started, Andrew Luck retired. But, all the best to him. You get some head injuries and you kind of start thinking about life beyond football, but what can you do? So we don't have a Patrick Mahomes. The freaking Bears passed up on Patrick Mahomes.
They did.
We went for somebody that played like 9-10 games in college, and we're like, hey, what the hey? Let's see how this guy does.
Wow, I didn't know that. So who did you pick over Mahomes?
Mitch Trubisky.
Well, he's a quarterback.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he got picked. We traded up for him. We traded up for him to get the second overall pick. And I thought we, could have went in a different direction, but it is what
So then Mahomes was picked after him?
I think Mahomes was like 9th or 10th. And then Deshaun Watson was also in that draft. So we could have gotten a couple, we had an opportunity at two really good quarterbacks. And you got to think about it. Mahomes was, the guy was throwing, crazy games. It's like, why wouldn't you at least consider that guy to be, your top choice? But I have no idea what these guys see in some of these college guys. But, Mitch Trubisky started 9-10 games for North Carolina, and I have no idea what they saw on him.
Tom Brady was 199th pick overall. Isn't that crazy?
That was crazy. Now he looked like he was not going to be a quarterback at all.
No, there's this is a real estate podcast. We're talking about football.
Right.
It could relate to business. There's, that Peyton Manning does that show on ESPN Plus called Peyton's Places.
Yeah.
It's really good. He did a one with Tom Brady. You should watch that. And Tom Brady just talks about it. Like, I knew I wasn't the best quarterback, and I just decided I'm going to work harder than anybody else. And that relates to real estate. That relates to business, because a lot of the guys that I see that are successful, it's not that they're smarter than anybody else. It's not that they're they're college educated. They're a man or a woman, or they're good looking, or they're smart. It's just they work harder than anybody else, which is great because it levels the playing field. Anybody can come into this business and do well as long as they're willing to work hard at it. I mean, look at us, right? We're not good-looking guys. We're not like superstars, but Jason, especially Jason. I think Jason's a harder worker than I am.
I don't know about that one.
We just work hard, man, and we're not going to quit. We'll never give up, and we're going to work and work and work harder than anybody else. That's why we've had the success that we've had. If it's not much, it's a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I've always been known as you never settle. You never settle, and that's always been kind of my big thing. Is I've never been somebody that just settles. And I think you do have to have that work ethic. You have to, and I know you have to have that work ethic. Some folks, they get started with real estate, and then they start realizing it becomes hard. It becomes hard because I don't think anybody out there ever says like, this is easy. Sometimes like I say, yes, it's simple, but it takes hard work. And that's really what it boils down to is you need to have that work ethic. A lot of people, they work for corporate America, and then they go all gung-ho and want to be an entrepreneur, but don't understand, hey, you still need to take some of the practices that corporate America gave to you, like having structure and being able to do things on an hourly basis. You still need to have that structure because it translates over into your business as an entrepreneur. And if you don't have like in the beginning, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, especially because like you came from corporate America, I came from corporate America. When I first started in this business, I was lost. I didn't know where to begin. I didn't know how to properly schedule my day. And I didn't really start seeing the results that I wanted in my business until I started really becoming an individual that, focused on my schedule and really focused on my time, because time is the most precious commodity that you can't buy more of. So why waste your day? Some folks may wonder, you may work 4 or 5 hours a day, but I can knock out more in 4 or 5 hours than most people can in 8, 10 hours. It's just all about how you structure your day. What do you think about
it? It is
that?
harder, though, to be an entrepreneur working for yourself.
It is.
Because you have to be even more disciplined. You don't have anybody over your shoulder checking in on you, nobody to report to. And so it is harder. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about.
Right.
You're going to be that kind of disciplined. Somebody told me early on, like, your speed to income is directly proportional to the number of offers that you make. And I realized, okay, if I want to make money in this business, I got to make a lot of offers.
Yeah.
And I just started really focusing on one thing.
Yeah.
And I knew if I want to make offers, I got to talk to sellers. And if I got to talk to sellers, I got to do a lot of marketing. And so I just started hammering on that, marketing.
Yep.
And I started, that got hard. I mean, it's hard to do all that marketing by yourself. So I decided I got to get somebody else to do this marketing for me. And that could be a mail house. It could be a virtual assistant. It could be, driving for dollars, bird dogs and things like that. But you've got to get somebody. If you're not going to do it, you got to get the marketing done for you in spite of you. And it all comes back to that.
Yep.
And the other thing I was going to say while you were talking about that was like, you got to ask yourself the question, if you were your own boss, would you fire yourself?
Right.
Some days I probably would, right? Like, because sometimes I get lazy, and it's hard to stay motivated when you're working for yourself, especially when you work from home.
Yeah.
It looks like you're in an office, right?
No, this is my home office.
Oh, it's your home office. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like, sometimes it's hard to get up, and you just okay, listen, it's a game of momentum, right? There's a real like law of momentum in business, especially in real estate, no matter what you're doing. Like, you can't just flip on the switch and say, all right, I'm going to be successful today. I'm going to do deals today. It takes work building that momentum up. The deals that we're doing today are not from new leads that are coming in today. They're from leads we've been following up with for the last 3 to 6 months.
Right.
So being disciplined and I hate the word hustle, but there is some element to that within reason, right? Not without going crazy, but you've got to put in the work.
Right.
You've got to start marketing and making offers today, not expecting to get quick, immediate results, but being willing to work hard today so that you can benefit and reap the rewards of it later. You reap what you sow in your family life, in your spiritual life, and in business. You reap what you sow. And if you want to sow money, if you want to sow deals, well, you need to put in the hard work of doing the marketing, talking to sellers, and making offers. I tell my students all the time, Jason, listen, just keep it simple. Talk to 5 sellers a day. That's all you need to do.
Yep.
Can you imagine if we just talked to 5 sellers a day? If somebody would have told me that when I was first getting started, how many sellers can you talk to in a month? 120, 130, 140 sellers a month.
Yeah.
You think you might do a deal if you talk to that many sellers? And then if you follow up with them, how many more sellers we have to follow up with? As that's the whole thing of the momentum building. So Don't think you got to talk to 150 sellers today. Just talk to 5. Just talk to 5. And then the next day, just talk to 5. And if your marketing is not getting you 5 leads, well, pick up the phone and just do some cold calls.
Yeah.
Talk to 5 sellers a day. You get better at it when you do that. When you practice, you get better at talking to sellers. You get better at learning how to evaluate deals. And then it just becomes like, I saw this movie the other day for the second time, Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Love that movie, man. And what is it? I mean, he has to come in late because of the bus, and he has to leave early so that he can get into the homeless shelter in time with his kid,
Yep.
And what is he doing? It's a numbers game. So he learned that if you don't hang up the phone, you can make more dials. So he just puts his finger on the hang up button and then dials, and he's able to get more done in less time because he's working so hard, and he's not farting around. He's just focused on, and he drinks less water too, so he doesn't have to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's such a cool story. But
It is.
I want to encourage people to think about these things now, get off your butt there. Let me say this too. There's another really good video by Frank Kern. You know Frank Kern, right?
Oh yeah.
You should look it up, and I'll use the PG version. There's 2 rules, the 2 commandments of business. Stop farting around and stop being a sissy. Okay. Those are the 2 rules of business. You should look it up on YouTube. And, but we spend all this time farting around with, websites and our business cards and our logos and studying. Well, like, should I use red ink or black ink? Is it okay if I use, labels, or should I handwrite my return address? Should I use a UPS store or a PO box, or is it okay if I use my home address as my return address? What should I use for phone numbers and all that? We spend all this time farting around. If a terrorist were to come and put a gun to your head and say, I'm going to kill you unless you make an offer in 30 minutes. All right. What would you do? You'd make an offer. You'd at least go to YouTube and say, all right, well, how do I make an offer? And if you have to find a contract, you'd go to YouTube and do a search for purchase contract, PDF, and you'd find a PDF to make an offer with, and you would make the stinking offer. But instead, we're farting around and not taking it seriously. And then the next thing is stop being a sissy. We'll go out and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on education and coaching and all of that. But we get scared when we're going to put $500 into a direct mail campaign.
Right.
Or we're going to put $1,000 into Google pay-per-click campaign, or, but we'll go and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on education. And that's important. I'm not saying that's not important, but we get afraid to take any risks and do any marketing. We get afraid to spend $100 a month on a CRM that's going to make our lives so much easier and help us keep organized and help us do more deals. But we'll go spend $1,000 every single month on a new course or a new workshop and a new boot camp. And I'm speaking to myself because that's the way I was.
Yeah,
but
me too.
Let's stop farting around. Let's stop being little sissies, and let's get our big boy pants on. And let's just talk to 5 sellers a day. Forget about everything else. Like if all you have is a yellow pad of paper, that's all you need. And a phone. You don't even need a computer anymore. Just call, talk to 5 sellers a day, drive for dollars, do whatever you have to do. Like I had a student, a friend, I interviewed him on my podcast. He's not even a student. He was bagging groceries. His dad was a real estate investor, got tired of seeing the big paychecks for 20, 30 grand that was sitting on his dad's desk for weeks without being deposited because his dad was just too busy. And he said, I want to make some of this money. And his dad's not going to give him a silver spoon. And he said, his dad told him, he said, all right, go read these 5 investing books. And the kid did, because the dad didn't think he was going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
And he did. And he said, okay, now what, Dad? I read these. And he said, well, read these other 5 books. So then the kid did. He's like, okay, Dad, what do I do? And he said, well, just do what the book said to do. It's like he wasn't going to help his kid at all, right? Not because he was trying to be mean, but he wanted his kid to he wanted to see how bad his kid really wanted it.
Yeah.
So the kid went on because he was bagging groceries. He was still in high school. He goes to the Home Depot, buys some bandit signs, didn't know any better, and puts these bandit signs on with his cell phone number on the bandit signs. Okay. Ooh. With his cell phone number on the bandit signs.
Oh no.
And he starts getting phone calls, gets a deal from it.
Nice.
And he started getting in trouble at school because he would step out of the class to take phone calls from these bandit signs, right?
That's awesome.
Who else answers the phone from a bandit sign call? Nobody. They always go to voicemail, right? And he's doing his cell phone. And then he's driving for dollars on his way home from school or his way home from the grocery store or on his way to wrestling practice, whatever. And he's always takes a different route looking for vacant houses, right? He doesn't know what skip tracing is, but he can't afford, REI skip or any of the other big skip tracing things. So he just goes to Google and searches, and looks at 10 different sites, finds a phone number, calls the seller from his cell phone. Within about 45, 60 days, the kid made like 50 grand in a very competitive market in Florida, right?
Wow.
Just because he's like, I'm not going to fart around. I'm not afraid to put my cell phone number out there. I'm not afraid to get in trouble with my teachers by taking calls from sellers. And then his dad started helping him with his dad was blown away and he was shocked. Like, what's going on? And So then his dad started helping him with like making offers. And when he went on the appointment to meet the seller, the dad went with him. But like, man, how cool is that?
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, it is a great story. I love that.
Well, just, you're saying reach out and do the 5 things for contacting sellers. We could easily say Zillow, Craigslist, Facebook
Marketplace.
Yeah, Facebook.
If all you did, guys, was just go to Facebook Marketplace, look up rentals, and send them a message. Mix the messages up a little bit so Facebook doesn't start blocking them. But say, hey, what's going on? I saw this house you have. You wouldn't be interested in maybe selling it, would you?
Right.
I love sending letters to rentals on Zillow because a lot of them are listed with property managers, right?
Right. Send
letters to the owners of those rental properties. You'll be shocked. A lot of them are not listed yet as absentee owners, right? I don't know. It depends on the city, but you'd be shocked. 10, 15, sometimes 20% of the houses that I've seen in Zillow listed as rentals, which by the way are vacant, are not listed yet as absentee owners in the county records, which means they're not getting any direct mail from other investors.
Right.
It's a great list to send some simple handwritten yellow letters. So, while you're sitting at home watching The Bachelor with your wife or whatever, why can't you just handwrite 20 or 30 yellow letters? While you're watching.
Unless you're really into The Bachelor, which
I hate The Bachelor. I've never seen it.
It's awful.
Do you don't watch it, do you?
No, my wife watches it in the other room. I cannot watch it. I cannot watch that. It's just complete garbage.
If you're a dude listening to this and you watch The Bachelor, you need to give me your man card. Like, just forget it. It's over.
I hate to admit this, but my dad watches it with my mom.
So. Your dad's different. Your dad's all right. And he's watching because he's smart and he's still married to your mom.
Yeah.
And that's probably why he's still married, because he puts up with that.
That's true. That's true, man. Well, to kind of shift here a little bit, let's talk about your lease option strategy, because obviously that's a big thing about what you're about and what you do and what you teach to folks. So
yeah,
how did you stumble upon lease options, man?
Well, I was make a short story long. No, I'll try to keep it short. I was looking at buying some rental properties in Austin, and this was back in 2005, 2006. Market's exploding. And I flew down there to look at some duplexes, and this guy said, there's 2 books that you should read. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I read that. And then another book called The Secrets of a Millionaire Landlord by a guy named Robert Sheeman. And I read that, and I had already had a rental property that went horribly wrong. It was really bad. And I swore to myself I would never own another rental property again. I did not want to be a landlord.
Yeah.
This guy in his book talked about how to set up systems and things like that. And then he had a chapter in there about lease options. And it was really fascinating to me because he talked about how you can get a tenant in the house who wants to buy it. So they're going to treat it nicer.
Yep.
And you can make them responsible for some of the maintenance and repairs. Not all of them, but some of the maintenance and repairs. That's fascinating. So I started reading a bunch of books about the topic. Started buying courses. I couldn't afford the expensive courses, so I started buying. They were probably pirated courses on eBay, but buying other people's courses on lease options. And then I started buying Wendy Patton's books, and I bought Wendy Patton's course from her directly. I think her course might have been the first one I bought. Wendy Patton was somebody that used to teach a lot of lease options.
Yep.
And I started thinking a lot about it. And then fast forward about 2 or 3 years, I was a professional student for about 2 or 3 years, right?
Yep.
And but then I started we were hemorrhaging cash. I'd bought a bunch of properties with bank loans and stuff and private money, and did a lot of subject twos. And the market was collapsing, and I was really hemorrhaging cash. And I was facing foreclosures and short sales on all my properties. So anyway, I knew I needed to learn how to make fast cash. And so I started wholesaling. And I decided I'm going to buy one more course, and I'm going to do what this guy says to do, and I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to do it. And so it was Chris Chico's course on virtual wholesaling. At the time, he called it absentee owner profits or something.
Yeah.
And I loved that course because it was so simple. It's like, do this and then do this and do this. And that's it. And so I started doing it. I didn't like it, but I wasn't going to question it or change it. I was going to do it anyway. And so I did my first wholesale deal, and I was like, amazing. And it was with a postcard. It was like 2007 or something, 2008. And but so I started doing a lot of direct mail, but then I was getting frustrated with the lack of response. Like even back then when it was the good old days, it was like I wasn't happy with the response rates. I was throwing away a ton of leads that didn't have any equity.
Yeah.
And lease options were always in the back of my mind. And I was spending thousands of dollars a month on direct mail. And I thought there's got to be a better way. And I read somewhere, somehow, somebody talking about sending text messages to rentals on Craigslist. And I thought that's interesting. So I started sending text messages to rentals on Craigslist, and started getting a large response rate. And that I was also doing at the time voice blasts.
Yeah.
And I would send out a voice blast and say, hey, I saw your rental on Craigslist. You wouldn't be interested in maybe selling it, would you? Or would you consider maybe leasing it for a couple of years and then selling it? And so then I started talking to people, and I found that I was getting more leads by doing that, which was free basically, than I was with my direct mail. And so I started talking to a lot of sellers, and I was still working a full-time job as a civil engineer, working for an electrical contractor building big power plants.
Yeah.
And so I started taking these calls and talking to sellers during my lunch break or on my drive home from work. And I started getting discouraged because I was throwing away all these leads that didn't have any equity. And I thought, but I could offer lease options to these sellers. And because they either didn't have enough equity, or if they did, they weren't willing to share any of it with me, I found like, man, I could offer them a lease option. And I was getting, instead of 1 out of 30 offers accepted, I was starting to get like 3 to 5 out of 30 offers accepted.
Wow.
And this was amazing. So I started doing lease options. And right about the same time, I said, you know what? Why can't I wholesale lease options? Instead of like, a wholesaling deal, you wholesale it to an investor. I could get one of these properties with no equity as a lease option and wholesale it to a tenant buyer instead and be out of the deal and still make, at the time I was averaging about $3,000 to $6,000 per deal. So, I made a lot of mistakes and I figured it out and I started doing it. And I started talking to people that were doing deals in like Chicago from the country of India. And then I started doing deals. I talked to one guy who was doing deals in Atlanta from his beach condo in Florida.
Oh, nice.
They were flipping lease options.
Yeah.
Now, this is amazing. And so I started doing it. And within about 3 months, literally, this isn't any BS or hype, within about 3 months of flipping these lease options part-time, I was making more money doing that than I was in my full-time job. And I was making good money, 75, 80 grand a year.
Yeah. My
engineering job. And I thought, this is pretty cool. And I started doing that, and I quit my job in the spring of 2009. The economy was in a free fall. Everybody was freaking out. People thought I was crazy for quitting my job at that point. But I knew there was something going on with this. Like I can do, these sellers were motivated, and all these other wholesalers were passing on those leads because there was nothing they could do with them.
Right.
And I'm knocking them down left and right. I couldn't keep up with the volume, And so I hired a VA to do all my marketing. I hired a friend to take the calls for me, and I hired a realtor to market the homes for me. So I had this kind of little system going, and I had people doing these deals. And then we started traveling around Europe with my family and our 4 kids and doing deals while traveling, in Europe for 2 to 3 months at a time. I got excited, and I got so excited about it. I love teaching. That's why I started my podcast and teaching people how to do this stuff,
Well, yeah, it's what you're doing is you're having the life that you want, and being able to take your family wherever, and just being able to do the things that you guys want to do. That's really what it's about for folks is, escaping that grind, because I've been listening to books and all this type of stuff about, folks that have that 9 to 5 mindset. And it's really, by the time they're set to retire, they don't have enough money to live out the remainder of their life. And it's just like, we get a lot of people that come to us when they're, in their later years, and they're like, hey, I really need to make this work. I don't have any retirement money. And if they do, it's not enough to live on. When most people are set to retire around 65-ish, they should have approximately $2.5 million set aside.
At a minimum.
And because you got to think, if you're going to, maybe you'll have another 20 years if you keep yourself in good shape, that's what you're going to need to have, especially for expenditures and everything else. Most people don't have that. I'd say 96% don't even have that. Yeah. So this is another option, like, wholesaling for quick cash. It's great, but you also have to think about other options, because people are going to say no. And when you can present more than one option, you're going to be that individual that's going to be a game changer for folks. So Joe, kind of walk us through, like, a seller agrees to do a lease option deal. Let's just say the home is worth, let's just say they owe $280. Let's say the home's worth $300. What are we going to do in that scenario?
So if they owe $280, the house is worth $300. So there's a couple things I could do. One of the things I tell sellers is, if I can get you that price that you need, is if you're willing to wait for it. I'm looking for a property that I can lease for a few years and then buy.
Yep.
And so I tell them I might be able to get you the same equity you would get if you sold with a realtor. Would that be fair? And they say, yeah. So I say, well, it might work like this. If we list the house for $300 and you can walk through the numbers and show them, they're going to lose about 12 to 15% of that to commissions, carrying costs, repairs, the inspection items, the
concessions,
seller concessions and closing costs and all of that stuff. So I say, I might be able to get you the same equity you'd get if you sold with a realtor. So I'm just going to open up my calculator here on my computer.
Yeah.
And, so if it's worth $300,000, okay, and I take that times, 87%, that means they're really only going to walk away with $261. Okay. So that means if they were to sell it today, they'd have to, and they owe $280, they'd have to come to closing with a check for about $19,000.
Oof.
And so depending on how motivated they are, I might say, listen, I might be able to get you that 261, or maybe even a little more. What if I could pay you 270 for the property? If you were willing to wait maybe 5 years for it or something like that. Now, if the seller's not motivated, they're not going to want to wait that long. But so it depends on, like, I will first always try to make what's called a sandwich lease option offer, where I'm going to stay in the middle. Even though they owe $280 today, well, in probably 3, 4, 5 years, they'll owe $260 for it, right?
Yep.
And so I could probably rent that $300,000 house out for $1,900 a month, maybe $2,000 a month, depending on the neighborhood that it's in. Their payment on that for $280 is probably going to be close to that. I'm just going to guess their payments might be around $1,700. So that leaves me a little bit of wiggle room, couple $300 a month that I could get in cash flow.
Yeah.
So on that kind of a situation, I would try to get a longer term. I would try to get maybe 5 to 7 years. And if the seller's really motivated, they don't care. They just want to get rid of that monthly payment, right? Yep. They just want to get that debt monkey off of their back. They can't make those payments anymore. And they don't want to be a long distance landlord. They're worried about renting their house out to somebody that's going to just trash it. Right. But if you can tell them, listen, I'll give you the same benefits of owning a rental property without any of the landlord headaches. I'll take care of it all. What would you want to do then? And so this is it's a marginal deal. Like, I'm going to offer them less than what they owe as a lease option. But, I might just say this. I might say, well, what if I just buy it for whatever your loan balance is sometime in the next 5 years?
Yep.
So I'd have to look at an amortization schedule to make sure, like, so I'm going to buy it, let's say, for $265,000 within 5 years, but I'm going to sell it for maybe $310,000, $315,000. That's like a $40,000 to $50,000 spread, isn't it?
Yep.
And I'm going to be getting a couple $300 a month in cash flow. Now, if they say no to that, if they don't like, I don't want to wait 5 years. No, forget it. I might say, well, listen, I could get you maybe 280, 290 for it if you're willing to wait maybe 1 or 2 years. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to stay in the middle. All right. I'm going to I'll give you a lease option contract, and then I'm going to sell my interest in this lease option contract to another tenant buyer who will come and take my place.
Yep.
And they say, well, how do you get paid? And I say, well, don't worry about it. I'm going to get paid from the buyer. The buyer is going to pay me an assignment fee. Okay. And you get to sign the assignment agreement. All right. So I'm not going to sell my contract to somebody else. You get to approve them. I can either do this or I can do this, right? If you're stuck on the price that you want and the term that you want, I might still be able to do a lease option. So I'm real careful how I phrase that, because you don't want to be brokering a deal where you're putting a buyer and a seller together.
Right.
You're just selling your interest in this contract to a tenant buyer. You know, during that time when I'm marketing the contract, I'm not tying up the property either. So if the seller sells it before I assign my lease option to somebody else, they can cancel my contract and they don't owe me anything. So I'm not taking the property off the market. I'm not tying it up. And so it's just a simple assignment agreement is all it is. And, sometimes I'll use a realtor to help me market the property.
Yeah.
And that helps, because you don't want to be doing that anyway. You should be outsourcing that. So why not outsource it to a realtor? But so I first try to make an offer where I'm going to stay in the middle and make, some cash flow, make some equity. And if those numbers won't work for the seller, then I'll give them a higher price and a shorter term on what I call a lease option assignment or a wholesaling lease option deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
I just find it's easier to negotiate lease options with a seller than it is with trying to get them down to 60 cents on the dollar or trying to get them to deed the property over to you, right?
Yeah.
I just find like a lease option is easier to negotiate. And it also, in my opinion, it raises fewer red flags to the due on sale police. Not that that's going to happen, but it's just easier I found to negotiate that with the phone. And I never go look at the houses either. So the easiest way to negotiate over the phone, the better. The easier it is, the better. Right.
Yeah. Because that's what I like about this is you don't have to go look at the property. And that's what we try and do with all of our wholesales as well. There's really no point to go look at the property. There really isn't. The folks can tell you everything that you need over.
Oh yeah. Well, so here's the way I looked at it also. Like there's a very few number of houses here that have a lot of equity and the seller is super motivated. And there's a ton of wholesalers competing after those few deals.
Yep.
There's a lot of sellers here who have just a little bit of equity and a lot of motivation and very few investors going after them. So if you're wanting to do lease options, you should think about try to network with all the other investors that are wholesalers, that are doing a lot of marketing and say, hey, listen, what if you give me those leads that you're throwing away? Give me the leads that you're throwing away and I'll do lease options with them. And, if you're just getting started out, offer to pay the wholesaler, half of your profits or something.
And that's a smart plan, because when I was doing short sales, a lot of wholesalers wanted nothing to do with them. And I would take those and I would pay them a referral fee and they would continue to send them to me, because a lot of people during that time span, when I first got started between like mid 2008 to mid 2011, they wanted nothing to do with those leads. So they would send them to me, I would get them closed, and then they would receive a 10% profit check and they would be happy campers. And you know what that would do? That would pay for their mailers. That would pay for a lot of their stuff. And then it would just be a cycle for me. I would pay, I would cut them that check. They would use it for mailing. And then I would get more deals from never really dipping into my own pocket to pay for that stuff.
That's so smart, man.
It helps out quite a bit with being able to do that kind of stuff. So being able to add the lease option when you're presenting to homeowners, because Joe's right. Not everybody's going to take your offer at 60, 65%. It's not going to happen. You need to come to the table with more options. Because when you could present more options of what you can do for somebody, they're going to look at you as the professional rather than, hey, I can do this. I'm not budging at all.
It's not like you have to give them all the options at once, right? Give them one at a time. And I want to say one more thing too before we end here. You were talking about people waiting until they're 65 to retire and they have to have $2.5 million in the bank.
Yep.
Did you know if you just did one standard normal lease option deal a month, just did one a month where you get about $300 a month in cash flow and you get about maybe 25, 35 grand on the back end. Okay. If you just did one a month within 3 years, you would have over $10,000 in cash flow and over $1 million in equity.
Jeez.
So you could literally, no matter where you are, if you're starting from scratch, you could retire in 3 years doing just one of these a month. Just one a month. And if you talk to 5 sellers a day, like we talked about at the beginning, doing one a month is easy. I mean, you should be able to do 2 or 3 a month.
Yeah.
And shorten that. But so there's no excuse, right? Like you don't have to use your own money to buy these deals. You don't put any of your own money into these deals. You're just basically leasing it with an option to buy it in the future. I like it because it gives you a lot more flexibility. There's a lot less risk involved. And, anybody, you don't have to have a ton of experience or a college degree to do this.
Exactly. I don't have a college degree.
No.
So,
and I do. And I didn't need it.
Well, it goes to show I barely graduated high school. So it goes to show that literally anybody can do this business, at any level. It's really like what we talked about early on in the show is really depends on your work ethic. I know, this kind of just all came more to light just recently with Kobe Bryant's passing. Yeah. But I will tell you what, growing up in Chicago area, MJ was always me focusing on, man, Michael Jordan, best basketball player ever. And yes, I still have him as the number one, but number 2 for sure for me is Kobe Bryant. Really? And the dude had a crazy work ethic. If you listen to any players, one that really resonates with me is when Jason Williams from Duke was graduated, or he was signed by the Bulls. He was the number 2 pick. You need to listen to this story because it was great. Jason Williams was playing the Lakers, and the day before he went in, was practicing, and he already had about 2 hours in. Kobe Bryant was on the other side practicing, and Jason Williams was like, man, I can't be outworked by Kobe. So he's in the gym, Jason Williams. And for those of you that don't remember him, he was fantastic at Duke, had a very short career in the NBA because of a motorcycle accident. But needless to say, he was there for about 6 hours and he walked off the court. And the next day, Kobe Bryant went up to him and, was giving him some motivation because they just gave the Bulls a beatdown. Kobe was like, hey, I just want to let you know, man, I wasn't going to be the one to leave first. So thank you for leaving first. Because Kobe probably not too long after there left, but he was always competitive. And same thing with Jordan. Jordan was always extremely competitive. He still is to this day. But it Mamba mentality, it became a thing in LA and throughout the entire world. Yeah. Without a doubt, he had one of the craziest work ethics ever. And it just goes to show what work ethic can get you. He obviously had some genetics. He was a tall guy, but still, he had to put in a lot of work, especially after Shaq left. He still was able to come up with 2 championships. It just goes to show what work ethic goes. And I'm not saying anybody on listening to the show right now is a professional athlete, but you got to surround yourself with people that are going to continue to push you and motivate you and make it happen. And I appreciate you being on here, Joe. With that being said, I always try and do this. I try and find out from other folks because we've had lots of guests on. If you could narrow it down to 2 really good books that you've listened to or read within the last maybe year or 2, what would you give to folks?
The first 2 that come to my mind, Pumpkin Plan.
Ooh, that's a good
Mike Michalowicz.
Yeah.
I need to read that again because it's so easy and tempting as an entrepreneur to like chase this and then do this. And then the definition of an entrepreneur, somebody that does something, finds something that works and then stops doing it and does something else and changes it, right? Like, why do we do that? The pumpkin plan is so good. It teaches you about focus and focusing on one big thing, growing a giant pumpkin.
Yep.
And, it's funny. The other book I think about that was written by the same guy, Profit First.
Two great books.
Profit First is one of the most important business books I've ever read, because it's all about paying yourself first. Because most of us got it backwards. We take revenue minus expenses equals profit, and it should be revenue minus profit equals expenses.
Yep.
And as you start making a lot of money, if you're not thinking about things like that, you're going to get in trouble. And ask me how I know. Like, you need to take every dollar that comes in, take a little bit for profit, a little bit for salary, a little bit for the IRS, and then whatever's left is your overhead and expenses. And if you do that, you will always be profitable. Always. And that's the crazy thing about this business is we start making money. I've met so many people, Jason, as you have too. They're making $1 million a year. You think, oh man, they're successful.
Yeah.
And they're taking home maybe 50 to 60 grand a year.
Right.
And they're working 60 hours a week. And you don't believe these big fat checks you see on Instagram, right? Like $20,000. There was a lot of money that went into that. They're not taking out the marketing they put into that. They're not taking out the overhead, the commissions they have to pay, the office rent, it's so ridiculous. Like, and I did a video on this one time on Facebook. I flipped a vacant land deal and I had a check for 18 grand. And I was really tempted to do a Facebook video and show a picture of this $18,000 check. And then I thought, whoa, wait a second. That's not true. I put like 7 grand of my own money in to buy the deal.
Yeah.
And so you have to take 7 grand out of that to reimburse you for what you put in.
Right.
Then I had all of the marketing and I had to split some of this with my partner at the time. And I was like, this. So I did a video on this and that $18,000 check, the real net profit was maybe, I think $7,000 or $8,000, right? Then that still didn't even include the taxes that I would have had to pay on that.
Oh man.
So you need to know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, you don't have a real business.
Yeah.
Bottom line. Like if you're rolling and you're making $1 million a year and you're only taking home 50, 60 grand a year,
there's something wrong.
Something's really wrong. It doesn't matter if you're making $1 million if your expenses are $999,000 a year. So Profit First is a real good book because it just will get you back to the business fundamentals. And if you learn that early on in your business, okay, you will grow your business smartly, right? Like you'll know, like maybe I don't need this $5,000 computer for my business. I'm okay with this $500 computer for now, right? Like I better make sure, even though I'm just now getting started, that Uncle Sam gets paid because Uncle Sam doesn't care that you drive a nice fancy car. Too many people right now are going broke, proving to broke people that they're not broke. Ridiculous. It's got to stop. You know what I'm saying?
It's totally true, man. And those books are great. I listen to the audibles, and Mike Michalowicz is hilarious.
Yeah, he's funny. He does a lot of ad lib on those audio.
He does. He's funny dude. Good reads. I agree with you 100% on that, Joe. And definitely recommend those books.
Let me recommend one more.
Yeah.
It's a Christian book, but it's really, really good. It's called The Blessed Life. And I'm a big believer in like, you reap what you sow, right? And so if you're sowing generosity in some of these charities you're working on, man, that comes back to you. And if you want to live a blessed life, you need to be a generous giver. Yeah. And that's so important. And I really love that book, The Blessed Life. I'd encourage people to read that. It's by a guy named Robert Morris.
Sounds like a great book. Yeah, I'm going to have to get that one. So we have a surprise for folks that are with us right now. Joe just published his newest book, and it's a great book. So Joe's got a really great offer. He's giving away the book. All you have to do is cover the shipping and he'll take care of it. So Joe, you want to tell them about the book that you just wrote?
Yeah, it's called Wholesaling Lease Options, one of the fastest and easiest ways to make money in real estate today. It's a real quick, easy read. It'll take you only a few hours to get through it. And it's like all killer, no filler. If you can see that font, it's like not big white spaces.
Yep.
I really go deep into the step-by-step on how to do these lease option deals. And I'm getting great feedback from this. And you can get it for free at WLObook.com. WLObook.com. Just pay a little bit for shipping and handling, and we'll send it out to you.
That's awesome.
And yeah. You can't buy it on Amazon either. It's only available at WLObook.com.
That's great. WLObook.com. Make sure you guys go check it out. Joe, is there any parting words for our listeners?
Man, just talk to 5 sellers a day.
I like that.
That's it.
5 sellers a day. 5sellersaday.com. we need to.
I should go see if that domain's available.
We need to put up some videos every day of everybody being accountable, and they can upload their video and say, "Hey, I made 5 offers today," and it could be a big community deal. 5 offers.
Well, let me just say this too, if it's all right. I'm doing a 5 leads in 5 days challenge next week. I'm going to be starting it as we're doing this right now. I'm going to start promoting it next week. I think we're going to start it the week after. And we're going to it's just a 5-day challenge. It costs $5, and we're going to teach you every day a new little 15-minute video on how to get 5 leads. So the goal of the challenge is to get 5 leads in 1 week, in 5 days. And we're just going to be teaching you really simple marketing things that you can do every day. And you can even take the videos and give them to a VA and have the VA do this stuff for you. So we're going to be teaching 5 different little marketing tricks and things that you can do. And if anybody's interested in that, 5leads5days.com, 5leads5days.com.
Yeah, we'll definitely put a link up there for folks so they can take a look at it. If you guys need anything at all from us, you can always reach out, support@jasonluchese.com. That's SUPPORT @JASONLUCCHESI.com. If you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you give us a thumbs up, like the video. Joe did a great job giving away a ton of great stuff today. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you are listening to this on iTunes, make sure you give us a 5-star review. And you become a subscriber because you will get instant notifications of brand new shows before anybody else. So with that being said, Joe, thank you so much for being a guest on the No Flipping Excuses show. And for those of you out there, go out there, call 5 sellers a day, make it happen. Joe gave away some great nuggets today, so go make it happen. Go flip a house. I will talk to you later. Bye now.
Thanks, Jason. Good to see you.
Thanks. Bye.